to reconcile oneself to in the Orthodox Church, and that is that you're never given that chance to be smug and self-satisfied and consider yourself saved or part of an elite clergy or something else, and comfortable in that sense. You're always called to basically examine yourself and examine how much what your faults are, and to try and improve yourself. And one of the recent elders from one of the monastic centers in Greece in the early part of the century put it very graphically when he said, "Keep your mind in hell, but despair not." In other words, consider yourself worthy of the worst punishments you can think of, without being pathological about it, but because you genuinely believe yourself to be inadequate to the marvelous goodness of God and His grace, but do not despair. And that kind of warm contrition, which is something you find in a good family, where people know each other's faults, and you have frictions and you have problems, but you basically are able to constantly reconcile one to another.
Because one takes responsibility for
oneself.
These things.
And that's, I think, if I'm going to make the final criticism of the ecumenical movement, it's this, that it doesn't produce the sense of family. It doesn't produce the sense of wholeness. It's simply, it's like there's been a divorce. It's been a bitter divorce. It's been a divorce which has divided the family. And rather than coming and having a true reconciliation, a true coming back together, a true healing of the wounds, we've decided, for the sake of getting along, Uncle John is not going to speak to Aunt Mary anymore. At these family gatherings, we're going to bring them all together
and agree to talk about the weather.
Yes.
You know, and this should tell you, and the irony, of course, is that if you disagree with any of these ecumenists, these modernists, and all these other people who are preaching such marvelous tolerance for each other, boy, do you then get it in the neck. You will get thrown in prison. Old calendar priests get thrown in prisons for their beliefs. And for not towing the party line.
In fact, the founder of the Cathedral of St. Marcellus, Bishop Petros, who went to his repose, is no longer with us, during the 50s, was in fact imprisoned in Greece for being an old calendarist, and he was placed in a prison with one of the greatest serial killers of Greece. I don't say great in the sense of a great human being, but in terms of infamy.
Most notorious.
Yes, most notorious, yes. And that tells you the mindset, that in their mind, an old calendarist, someone that was practicing traditions, was as much an enemy to the peace and to the harmony of the people as this serial killer.
So you really find out how intolerant these very tolerant people, or supposedly tolerant people, are.
Well, they're tolerant of everything, but
disagreement with what their ironclad precepts were, which Timothy spoke about in the last program.
And what is this but basically, you know, this disagree to disagree business, and this lack of profundity, and this lack of really working through the problems that theologically exist between different confessions and between the West and the East. What is this but a kind of hypocrisy?
And you know, the Orthodox Church has always believed that there were certain truths which you could attain through prayer and fasting, through enlightenment, through purification, as we've called them, the path towards theosis, or becoming like God. Begins first with illumination, then you go through purification, and then you finally reach theosis. The saints reach this state of glorification where they see God. They don't see His essence, but they see His uncreated energies. And that is the mission of every individual Christian, is to go through this process. But rather, it simply becomes reduced then, that whole tradition becomes reduced to a few maxims, a few statements. You know, and the creed and the doctrines of the Church, which were formulated to lead us through this path, through this growth, through this true enlightenment, are finally abandoned for the sake of these few simple maxims, these few simple words.
Which are unfortunately not sincerely meant, and which are basically humanism.
And inadequate.
So, yeah. And this is not salvation. This is a basic denial of the whole goal and purpose of the church, which is to transform mankind. And mankind, as we see today, in every city that we go into, with the amount of crime and the constant warfare and then the horrible things that we've seen in the last century that human beings have done to each other. These ecumenists claim that their church is going to provide the answer. What such a diluted soup of such a weak broth is going to really cure and really help and transform society? Not very likely. What is required is radical, hard, and difficult work. And instead of leading people and exhorting them and providing them with the means of resolving these questions on a real level of a certain amount of integrity, instead what we get are platitudes and empty formulas and hypocrisy.
It's difficult work to arrive at the truth. It's difficult work. It's difficult work because you have to either admit you're wrong, or you have to understand that someone else is wrong. And
that's not nice.
No.
And everyone in this ecumenical movement, and there seems to be, that's the prerequisite. You have to play nice.
Well, that's not enough. You see, the world doesn't operate by people playing nice. You unfortunately are required to have certain laws and certain rules, and those that do not live up to them, have to be dealt with a certain amount of firmness.
There has to be discipline. A family without discipline, a permissive family, produces rebellious and recalcitrant children.
And for a family to truly function, a parent has to know a certain degree as to when to be strict and when to be lenient. And this is one of the great principles. I think we've discussed it in our earlier programs that we had several months ago or a few years ago, between strictness and accommodation. And the Roman Church has never understood that. It has always applied over strictness, and the Protestants in turn have also. So you get these fundamentalists on the Protestant side, or the extreme papists on the other, who have laid down rigid rules and formulas that you have to agree to, even if you can't understand why or how to live up to them. And that's not a way to function and to create a living church.
Well, thank you. I'd say that sums up the essence of our 3 programs on ecumenism. And once again, I would like to thank Reader Timothy Fisher from Holy Fathers, Russian Orthodox Church in Manhattan, and Father Michael Halford from a Greek Orthodox Cathedral of St. Marcellus in Astoria. And I'm Vincent Neiman, thanking you all for joining us for this 3rd and final program on ecumenism. This is Orthodox Christian.